I desperately need a breakaroonie doonie from Fae Romantasy. Hello besties, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Tori if you're new. We are doing a weekend reading vlog and we are reading anything but Fae fantasy romance. We're looking for some 4 to 5 stars and we need to just take a break from Fae fantasy romance. So we are looking for witches, we're looking for vampires, we're looking for dragons. There is one book in here though that I think has some minor Fae in it, so don't yell at me. It's from Claire Sager though, and it is our book club pick for June. So let's talk about the TBR. I will start with the one that I've just mentioned. So I do plan on reading Beneath Black Sails this weekend, which is by Claire Sager. That is our Who Did This To You book club pick. That's the book club that I run on Fable. We read fantasy romance every single month. It's very casual, read at your own pace, chat your thoughts as you go. It's mostly pirates, and our main character in that book is a sea witch or a witch of some type. I feel that it won't be super heavily Fae oriented. I've heard that it is a super fun pirate fantasy romance. I also have on the TBR a newer release. This was released in May and this is super witchy. It is Bespelled by Laura Thalassa. It's one of my most anticipated releases of this year. I loved the first book in this series, which was Bewitched, and then I think we're getting a prequel book. I will go more into summaries as we're picking up these books throughout the vlog. This one and Beneath Black Sails are my top priorities for this weekend. I also have as options, if we get to them, I really want to get to Tentacles and Teeth by Rowan Merrick. I heard Kitty talking about this on her channel. It's like a monster novella. That just sounds incredible. I also think it's Why Choose, and it has that LGBT plus representation. So that, I think that's a must read as well, definitely a priority. And then the book that I am currently about 40% of the way through that I will absolutely be finishing and including in this vlog is Bound to the Shadow Prince by Ruby Dixon. This is the book that has shifted me and made me realize I need to take a step back and away from Fae Romantasy. This book is I'm hesitant to call it a monster romance because it's not super monstery. However, our male love interest, he's not a human. He has bat-like wings. He lives in the shadows.
Hi, Batman. I live in the shadows.
He's slightly giving gargoyle. It's not advertised as a gargoyle fantasy romance. And this made me realize I need more like monster romance. I need something other. You know what I mean? So that is the plan for this weekend. We have many options. We will see what type of fun we get into. I will check in with my first reading update very shortly. I think we will start this reading vlog continuing to read Bound to the Shadow Prince because that's just where my heart lies right now. Let's talk about Bound to the Shadow Prince by Ruby Dixon. This is an arc that I have. I am now 50% of the way through. This book comes out in July. I'm a massive fan of Ruby Dixon. I never ever thought the Ice Planet Barbarian series would be a series that, first of all, I would ever read. Second of all, I would enjoy and give almost each book like 5 stars. I love her. If you're unfamiliar with Ruby Dixon, she typically writes more monster romances, or like Ice Planet Barbarians is an alien romance. Bound to the Shadow Prince is, I would say, a little bit more of a mix of fantasy romance with monster romance. Synopsis for this. Our main character's name is Kendra. She is a princess. She is considered the like useless princess, kind of the spare, if you will. Her eldest sister married to become queen. She herself is sick. She has this blood curse in her family line. So she has a blood curse. She has to administer medicine to herself every day. And she's also infertile, supposedly, because of this blood curse. And then she has a younger sister who took the more like religious route, but her younger sister was supposed to fulfill this role. Society has a tradition, if you will, to honor their moon goddess, where One of the girlies from her family's specific bloodline has to be sent to this very isolated castle slash fortress, and they have to stay there for 7 years. When they do this, the goddess is pleased and it's good fortune amongst their society. They have good crops, everyone has a good time. Kendra has to take her youngest sister's spot in this tower for 7 years. She is supposed to get locked away with one sacrifice, if you will, from their enemy kingdom. Kendra doesn't know how to take care of herself. Her maids dress her, her nurse administers her medicine to her. She doesn't know how to cook for herself. She lives the spoiled princess lifestyle. But they have forced proximity. They are technically enemies when they first enter this castle. They completely don't talk to each other and avoid each other. 7 years is a long time, and they get sent with supplies. They don't have any outside contact to the world. They actually get bricked into this castle. She figures, maybe let's try to befriend Nemeth, this enemy. You do get a slow introduction to the spice, but Ruby Dixon writes typically very, very spicy books. So spice rating, hot spicy pepper rating is definitely a 5-star on this one. I'm excited for the spice to continue to ramp up from here to the end of the book. So I'm gonna keep reading. I don't know what the goal is to read. I have a little bit less than 5 hours, according to my Kindle, left in this book. I would like to actually try to finish it today just because I'm having a really great time. When I'm reading it, it doesn't feel like I'm reading. Good morning, besties. It is early. It is like 7:30. I have to go to the DMV today to finish registering my car. But I wanted to do a check-in because last night I stayed up until midnight. I stayed up as late as I could trying to finish Bound to the Shadow Prince. I only have an hour and a half left of the book. I was really trying to finish last night because the second half of the book has faded a little bit for me, unfortunately. From like the 50% to about 75%. I think that was a tough quarter of the book. So I think I mentioned this book is a little bit more slowly paced. I think I'm at like 85 or so percent. So this last 15% is starting to pick back up again. And I'm having a good time again because we have some final questions that we're waiting to get answered, because I'm trying to think about how I can talk about what's going on without spoiling anything. In this book, we have like forbidden romance, enemies to lovers, forced proximity. There is a caretaking trope because she is sick at one point. It actually goes both ways, so that's always fun. I love a caretaking trope. Let's just say they get into a pretty dire situation. I do think this book may have benefited from being just a little bit shorter. I think that the spice in Ice Planet Barbarians was better, and now we're at the point in the book where, like I mentioned, this is over 500 pages. We're at the point in the book where we are getting more like spicy scenes, but it feels like they're just thrown in there without really serving a purpose, and they're not adding anything new or different, so it's feeling like the same spice over and over again. So there's that. But we will definitely finish her today, and then I think next I'm going to start Bespelled. Laura Thalassa, she has such an easy writing style that even though it's technically like a witchy fantasy romance, I feel as though her romances read like a contemporary romance, meaning like they're just so easy to read. You don't have to think too hard about it. There's really no like world building or anything. Like you can just fall right into the book, and I'm so excited to return to those characters. So I think that's the plan. Finished Bound to the Shadow Prince, and I have just started reading Bespelled, so I wanted to give a final update on Bound to the Shadow Prince. I ended up giving it I put 4 stars on Goodreads. I put 3.75 stars on Storygraph. It's probably more of that 3.75, and I know that's so specific, but I just don't feel it was like a full 4-star for me because, like I have mentioned, the middle of that book dragged. I think things could have moved a little bit quicker than they did. However, I was not expecting the plot twists that we got at the end. It was just absolutely mind-blowing, to be honest. I was expecting a much more soft ending. I was expecting it to continue to completely focus on the romance, but we actually zoomed out a little bit. We got to see more of the conflict with the war going on in the background that I mentioned, how the two groups of people, like Nemeth's people and Kandra's people, what was happening with them while our main characters were trapped in this tower together. So it was a really interesting read. I think I'll reiterate that the spice just got a little bit old towards the end. I definitely like the Ice Planet Barbarian spice better, but it was a really solid read. So 1 book complete, and like I mentioned, we just started reading Bespelled. I just read the first chapter, and I'm always so grateful when authors include a little section that is a brief recap of things. The first book, our main character's name is Celine. She is a little witchy girl. She's trying to get accepted into this witch school on the Pacific Northwest. I love that setting. I love books that are set in the Pacific Northwest. Anyways, she's trying to get into this school. They're hesitant to take her because they find, or she finds, that when she uses her magic, she loses her memory, or like her memories get spotty. So there's a direct correlation to her using her magic and her memory eroding. But she has to prove herself in her entrance interview, and she has to almost do like a study abroad trip. It's really fun. She has to basically go on a trip to find her magic, connect deeper to her inner power as a witch. She decides to book a trip to South America. It's a very modern day witchy story. So her plane gets pulled down from the sky by this dark magic that surrounds the plane, crashes in the middle of the Amazon. She finds her way to these ruins, has no idea what's going on. By accident, awakens this ancient man who is very powerful. He's a very powerful sorcerer named Memnon, who has been asleep for millennia. He wakes up, thinks that our main character, who is 20 years old, is his long-lost wife who betrayed him. He says, "You're my wife and you betrayed me." And she says, "I literally have no idea who you are." All throughout the first book, she writes these journal entries to herself to recap what has happened for that day or that week. So Laura Thalassa in this one wrote a journal entry from Celine that says, "A brief recap of things I must not forget in the off chance that asshole Memnon screws with my memory again." We have our blanket. We have the fan on. I have a full Stanley cup of ice water. I have some lo-fi on my iPad in the background. The ultimate summer reading cozy vibes. This is such a good faded mates. I just have to read something. Look at me, Celine. It's a command, yet all I hear is a plea. Memnon wants connection, reassurance. This was his grand plan after all. He couldn't resurrect the past, but he could at least draw forth my memories of it. I suppose at the heart of all the sorcerer's vengeance, he simply wanted to feel less lonely. My gaze reluctantly moves to his. He's torn his own attention briefly from the road ahead of us. It doesn't matter when we marry, little witch. He squeezes my freshly healed hand. Neither magic nor time can keep us apart. His eyes are luminous. We are like the stars, eternal. We are 162 pages into Bespelled. I didn't read as much as I wanted to last night. However, I have the day to read this book and play video games. I'm gonna play Sunhaven with my bestie Sarah a little bit later, I think. So I'm going to read until I need a break, and then we're gonna start to play Sunhaven. I don't even know what to say about this. It's so fun, and I feel like I've said that a million times. Memnon is just the most vengeful and vindictive but also so loving and obsessed and simping over Celine that it is incredible. In this book, we get more peeks at the memories that she forgot in the first book, and that has been super fun. It's not super dual timeline, but you do get some flashbacks of the past, we'll say. So far, it has been so fast-paced. One thing that I really love about Laura Thalassa's writing, and I haven't read any other series by her. I know that she has some popular ones, but at least in this book, at least in this series, she just does the witchy atmosphere so well. Like in the first book, there was this spell circle scene that was underground and it was really creepy and it was super atmospheric. Like, just, these books would be fantastic to read in the fall, but I'm having the best time with them right now in the summer. In this book, we do get a Samhain celebration, so they are in the woods. It is so witchy. There's another kind of like spell circle around a bonfire, because Halloween or Samhain is when the veil to the spirit world is like broken and the spirits are able to more easily come into our world. They invite a lot of spirits. They also invite a lot of just magical beings, and so this vlog is reading books that don't have fae, except there was one scene on Halloween where a fae was riding a horse trying to capture a bride. However, he is not the focal point. Fae are not the focal point, so we're just gonna pretend like it didn't happen, but I thought I would mention it. There's also werewolves in this. We haven't seen any vampires. There were ghosts in that scene as well, which is really fun, and obviously it's super, super witchy. Memnon and Celine, these books are technically like hate to love or enemies to lovers, but like not really, because Celine constantly tells Memnon that she hates him. She absolutely doesn't. Like, she's in love with this man. It's just very complicated. If you love to read a super messy and complicated relationship, I don't think you can get more complicated than Memnon. We have finished her. I think final rating on this is going to be a 4-star. So fun, so enjoyable. If you're looking for something that is not serious, spicy, suspenseful, mystery / action-packed. It didn't feel like this was 527 pages, I'll say that. I'm gonna write my review for this on Goodreads, and then the plan for the rest of the day is to start Beneath Black Sails and get at least 100 pages in, so I will give you some thoughts there. And then I also really, really, really want to read Tentacles and Teeth. That's the book I saw Kitty talking about from Spicy Cat Reads. It just sounds so fun. It's like 250-ish pages, somewhere around there. Super spicy, monster romance. I think that'll be a fun one to like close out today and close out this reading vlog. So I am actually gonna try to finish that one today, as well as reading 100 pages of Beneath Black Sails. I will check in once I've started one of our other 2 books. I spent the last hour starting Tentacles and Teeth. I'm now 57% of the way through. I think I misspoke earlier. This book is less than 200 pages. I think it's 197. And oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so spicy. It is just a super spicy fantasy novella on Kindle Unlimited. And I really don't know how to describe this synopsis. So basically, our main character's name is Katerina. She is looking for like a fun, spicy time. She pulls up, we meet her as she's pulling up to this bar. It's a biker bar. She walks in, gets hit on by this gross man that she's not into. The bartender saves her. The bartender is this super hot, like shadow mommy. I slightly disagree with the term tentacles, but like, let me describe this to you. She's a shadow mommy that just has almost like shadow arms. Like, she just has this aura of shadows around her, and they're not like octopus tentacles. They're just these like arms of shadows that she can like make drinks with and she can like do stuff with. She slaps this guy away from Katerina and she starts talking to her. They hit it off, and then they have a very spicy night, and things are very fast. This is definitely a fast burn. It's a Kindle Unlimited fantasy romance, so in terms of like romantasy prompts, those would be really good ones. We're slowly building up, but there's also a spark not only between Katerina and her shadow mommy bartender queen, but there's also a spark between our shadow mommy's roommate, who is a werewolf shifter. I love the dialogue. I love it's not really banter, but I love the flirtation that's going on between the three of them. I'm just having the best time. This was such a good palate cleanser. Even though Bespelled was also super spicy, this is just spicy in a very different way. I think the purpose of this book, the intention behind it, is very different from Bespelled. So I'm happy that this is where I started. I am going to read Beneath Black Sails a little bit later, so I do want to finish it. I cannot wait to read more. You can tell how much I'm loving this book just because how much I'm smiling talking about it. Good morning, besties. I am here to close out the vlog and give a final reading update. It is currently 7:30 in the morning. I'm about to jump onto my first Zelda stream at 8 a.m. and I'm so freaking excited, but I stayed up far too late reading last night, and this keeps happening because I want to continue reading in my book, and then I realize that it's past midnight and I have to wake up at like 6:30 in the morning. So I got 75 pages into Beneath Black Sails. I was surprised at I forget if there's a prologue. I think there is. I was surprised at the prologue slash first chapter because it did not grip me in the way that Claire Sager's writing typically grips me in the beginning of a book. But this is what I think happened. Basically, they're just sailing into port, looking at other ships that are around them, and Vice is like, ooh, look at that pretty ship. Ooh, look at that pretty ship. It's extremely detailed in speaking about all of the different ships that there were in the sea at that point in time. And I was like, why do I care about this? However, as you continue to read and we get into some of the action, our characters get introduced very quickly. Nye is her pirate hunter that's trying to hunt her down. He is 6'5", gray eyes. He doesn't work in finance, but he works in hunting pirates. A couple books that I've read this year have had this trope of he is hunting her down, like The Crimson Moth and Powerless. And it's just one of my favorite things, and I'm so excited that we're getting it right from this first book, because those other two books I mentioned, it happens later on. And then I think the other update that I have to give you before we end is Tentacles and Teeth, my final rating. I did finish her. I loved it. It had been so long since I had read a spicy fantasy novella. I thought it was the perfect length. I actually would have liked a little bit more of it, but it was just under 200 pages. The spice was spicing. The spice also served a purpose, if that makes sense. Like, we meet these characters, they meet very quickly, they get spicy very quickly, they have like one night of fun, and then the additional spice that we get throughout the book is like relationship building spice, and I think that's the best kind. Like, it's not just spice for spice sake. It kind of is, because it's so short, but you can tell that it's furthering the relationships between the characters. I ended up giving it 5 stars, and Kitty said this first. I just agree with it, and I need to spread the good word. Tentacles and Teeth absolutely has the energy, the book form, if you will, of Billie Eilish's song Lunch. I will leave you with that. I will catch you in the comments. I will see you in my next video. Toodles, friends.